Welcome to a new short series on friendship, which we could entitle Love and Lovability, because really it's about the virtues that we need in order to be good friends. There is, much that has been written and said about friendship. Is one of these great topics that has been reflected on since, the beginning of history probably. But one person I do want to look at, because perhaps he's written more deeply about friendship than anybody else, Aristotle, the Greek philosopher of the 4th century BC, who's great at examining phenomena. In other words, just things that he saw before him, including human behavior. And one of the things he looked at over years and thought about deeply was friendship just between people. And he deduced that there were 3 types of friendship, depending on their motivation, what gave rise to the friendship in the first place. The very first one is the friendship of pleasure. In other words, what gave rise to this friendship and keeps it together, importantly, is the pleasure that the friends gain from each other's company. That could be because the person's got a huge kind of cache of jokes, and he has you in stitches all day long because just one joke after another, and that's very pleasant. It's great. They're very witty. They're great fun, and there's great pleasure in being with them. There could be the sexual pleasure of a partnership which is just based on purely the enjoyment of being with the opposite sex, and one way or another deriving pleasure from that. That's kind of pleasure love. The second one then is motivated but not by pleasure. There may be no pleasure involved at all, but utility. So friendship of utility. And here the benefit really is I'm somehow gaining myself from being with this person that I call my friend. Because, maybe they're very educational. They're teaching me loads of things. I'm like learning, a sport from them, and I couldn't get a better teacher. Or maybe wealth. They share their wealth with me, and so everywhere they go, everywhere these friends go, one, pays for everything and has all the money, and great, that's very useful. Or it could be even kind of, you might say, social status. This person is famous, and so when I'm seen with this person, I am basking in the glow of their fame, and that's great for me. Maybe that's pleasure, I don't know. But there are kind of different things. The utility is normally something in the future, wealth or education. I'll get some pleasure in the future, but at the moment this is just utility. Now, Aristotle says these are both imperfect kind of friendships, because both will fail when the motivation fails. So the pleasure, if the poor guy runs out of jokes, he loses his friends. He's no fun anymore. And so, fun was what held the friendship together. When fun goes, the friendship dissolves. And the same with utility. If the wealthy man with his friend who is benefiting from all those free meals and everything, if he loses all his money, well then the motivation has disappeared, and it's pretty sure that he will lose those friends who are really, in a sense, just hangers-on. If the famous person falls into disgrace, a bit like Oscar Wilde made that discovery himself, which he writes about in The Ballad of Reading Gaol, well, the friends abandoned him at a very, very quick pace. They fled from him, in fact. Even Jesus, you could say, that there might be an element in the way people fled from Jesus. Their friendship with him might have been a utility. And so these two are not true friendship, he says. Rather, they are imperfect, because the perfect one will seek to love the friend just in themselves, separate from any good that I could derive from it, separate from any pleasure, separate from any utility. And this third kind of friendship he called love or friendship of virtue, where the object, the motivation for the friendship is the person themselves, not the good, not the pleasure, the utility that I can derive from them. And in saying that, he means also that what I'm looking for in this friendship is the good of that person, this best friend of mine or this spouse of mine. I'm not seeking my pleasure. I'm not seeking my utility. Now, they may be there, the person that we love may also at the same time be great fun, and they may be very wealthy, but they're not the motivations. So we love them, and we seek their good, and if all their jokes dried up, or if they lost all their money, we would still equally be their friend. Think of the marriage ceremony, in fact, when two people exchange their marriage vows. And in one formula for the exchange of the marriage vows, the couple say they promise to love each other for better or for worse. In other words, for pleasure or without pleasure, for richer or for poorer. Again, with utility or without utility. So in fact, those two kinds of friendship get a mention, explicit mention in that marriage ceremony as being dismissed of as the motivation for their love. It's very nice. In other words, the couple are saying, no, we are marrying out of virtue love or virtue friendship. If pleasure dries up, it makes no difference. If utility dries up, it makes no difference. This is not what is motivating our friendship. So it's a very beautiful thing, really, when you think of that is incorporated into the marriage ceremony. The couple that live together like that, whether the physical attraction may fade, the enjoyment may fade a little bit, they're not living with someone, as in cohabitation, they're living for someone. It's a very, very different thing. The good of the other is the object of their love. That's what they're seeking. I give thanks, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations you have communicated to me in this meditation. I ask you for help to put them into effect. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. We come to the second part in our short series on love and lovability, the virtues necessary for friendship. And in the last reflection, we looked at the three kinds of friendship, according to the great Greek philosopher Aristotle. The friendship or love of pleasure, that of utility, and the only true kind, virtue friendship or virtue love, where it's not the pleasure or the utility, but the love itself, which is what motivates the friendship. Now, in saying this, there's something that I suppose is very important when we think of friendships and we think of our friends. Maybe in a particular way when we think of the friendship between spouses. And that there is maybe a kind of typically modern view that friendship is a feeling. It is a good feeling, affection, an emotion, a bit of a buzz that we get from being with that person. And that's what defines a friendship. And that if this buzz or this kind of feeling or pleasant emotion fades, well then with it fades the friendship. And perhaps that's why many crises develop and people say kind of slightly silly things like, I've fallen out of love. There was some ancient writer who said, a friendship that fails was never a friendship in the first place. It's kind of a striking thing to say, because a friendship, a genuine friendship, in a certain sense, can never be broken. Now, maybe that's putting it quite strongly, but there's something about a genuine friendship, at least that makes it very hard to break, almost impossible. The kind of friendship that Aristotle is talking about, this virtue friendship, where we seek the good of that other person. It is not a warm, fuzzy feeling, a nice emotion. It is rather a real decision. In other words, a decision of the will. I am deciding here and now that this person who I like, I enjoy, or for whatever reason, there's maybe motivations, but I am kind of committing myself to them as a friend. This is kind of mutual, of course, and it happens in unspoken ways. But a friendship, true friendship, is is a commitment. Of course, in marriage, it happens in a spoken way. It's not just unspoken development. Initially, it's unspoken, but then in the marriage ceremony, it's very, very explicit. This is the decision. I am making the decision. I will be your friend for life. And whether there's good feelings or the warm buzz, or that makes, well, no difference. So this typically modern view that sees friendship as some of this good feeling, warm buzz and so on, is kind of dangerous, because feelings are very, very transient. They're like the weather, at least here in Ireland. You look at the weather, the window 1 minute, and you look at it 2 minutes later, and it's a different day. And so our emotions are like that. They're very transient, and you cannot base anything on feelings, on emotions. It's just so flimsy. But rather, far from being a fleeting passion, it's a chosen stance taken up in favor of the other person. I decide this is my friend. I will stick, we think things like, I will stick by this friend. I will be loyal to my friend. Friends forever, friends for life. So that's this chosen position, this decision that we make. So it's very, very important. And I suppose that's why, again, in the marriage ceremony, that very solemn moment of exchanging the marriage vows is a very important psychological moment. Perhaps we could do that with friends. Sometimes it does happen, friends kind of declare their friendship, blood brothers, and they exchange blood or whatever. We are inseparable. It's just kind of nice in its way. But in the marriage ceremony, it is a very important psychological moment. I am committing myself, again, as we saw, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer. Of course, for this to happen, like in anything where it's a chosen stance, we must know what we're doing. If one or both of the partners getting married were under the influence of alcohol or drugs, well, the marriage would be, the marriage ceremony would not have taken place properly, and the marriage would be probably invalid. If they didn't know what they were doing, just they were blind drunk, of course they can't commit to anything. Or if they weren't free, again, this is why the famous kind of shotgun wedding, the father is down the back of the church with a shotgun under the bench. That of course would affect the freedom of this decision, and therefore again, certainly it would be a bit dubious whether they were really, really married, because it has to be this free decision. I know what I'm doing. And of course, in marriage, as we priests know very well, as we tend to do it, preparing couples for marriage and then doing the prenuptial inquiry, as it's called, where we grill the poor couple. Are you free? In one way or another, we're saying, do you know what you're doing? Do you know what you're doing? Are you free? And the couple again and again and again is forced to say, yes, I am free. This is very important, I think, in understanding marriage. It is a free decision. And understanding friendship at large. Because, marriage is just a very, very intense kind of friendship. But all friendships have true friendships, not the ones of utility or pleasure, but these true friendships are chosen stance. And we're also saying with a friend, look, if you lose all your jokes or you lose all your money, I'm with you. Even if all kinds of things happen to you, even if you turn against me, I won't turn against you. It's that kind of loyal friendship that requires a lot of perhaps holiness to be that faithful to a friendship. But friendship has that kind of written into it, that kind of fidelity and loyalty. I give thanks, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations you have communicated to me in this meditation. I ask you for help to put them into effect. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. Welcome back to our short series on love and lovability, the virtues necessary for friendship. So we looked last time at the fact that true friendship is based not on emotions, passing emotions, which are very fragile and very fickle, but rather a firm decision, which we could call a commitment. One thing that's very important about friendship is that it's mutual. You think of a handshake. These are expressions sometimes of friendship. Handshake or a kiss. Obviously, a handshake requires two right hands. A kiss requires two sets of lips. So one hand is being shaken back by the other hand. One set of lips is being kissed back by the other set of lips. So it's just impossible to have friendship which is not mutual. Or another way of putting that is, you cannot be friends. You might like a person. If they don't like you at all, there's no friendship. So it's that mutual, it's reciprocal. So it's a very important thing. So one must love or like a person, but also be loved or liked in turn by that person. There's something perhaps we don't think about very much, and again, thinking perhaps of spouses, but any friends that we have, that in a sense, something we can do, okay, obviously we can love a person, but also we can try to make their job of loving us easier. This is what we call amiability or likability. A person who's likable, it's easy to like them, or amiable, same thing. It's easy to like that person. They make the job easy. And especially where there is a commitment to friendship, as in the commitment of a married couple and so on. And you could say they're kind of stuck with each other. And therefore it's particularly important for them to make it easier, a pleasant task to be with that person, make the friendship easy. Because there's a great danger if friends, including husbands and wives, just simply take the love or the friendship of their spouse or their friend for granted. Kind of saying, well, you're committed to me as my spouse, you're committed to me as a friend, and therefore I don't do anything to kind of make that easier for you. And that's a little bit unfair, perhaps. True, they are committed, but it's a great act of charity to make that commitment less onerous, make it easier. And there is a lot that we can do to make the task of loving us easier. There's a lot of virtues that we can work on that just make us more pleasant for others. Again, more amiable, or more lovable, or more likable. So this is, you could say, the whole virtues of cordiality, of cheerfulness, of refinement. It's a whole load of many of the virtues. I suppose in a sense, maybe all the human virtues make a person more amiable. And so a big part of our struggle should be the struggle to improve our own character, to work on those things that one way or another we suspect, or we know for sure, are kind of deficient in our character, and therefore just make it that little bit harder for another person to like us. Things, rough edges that we have, brusqueness, maybe things that have even kind of crept in over time, because, well, these things can, we can get crusty with age, and these things, we weren't crusty when we were 10 years old, but maybe when we're 60 years old, we become a bit crusty. So these are things that it's very good for us to have an eye out for, and especially not just to improve ourselves for our own sake, but to improve my character so that those people who live with me, especially again thinking of a spouse, that it's not so hard to be our friend, to love us. The book of Sirach in the Old Testament has a very simple observation, but it says, a pleasant voice multiplies friends, and a gracious tongue multiplies courtesies. So it's kind of a similar thing. A pleasant voice, in other words, not just the nice timbre of the voice, but just saying nice things, pleasant words, cheerful tone, witty conversation, all that kind of stuff, multiplies friends. It kind of begets, produces friends. And then the gracious tongue multiplies courtesies. It's very attractive. It makes a person amiable, likable. And so, anyway, we could be thinking of that. That is something in friendship where we can do an awful lot to assist the other person, to assist my friend, to assist my spouse in the task that they have of loving me. I give you thanks, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations you have communicated to me in this meditation. I ask you for help to put them into effect. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. Welcome to our final part of our series on love and lovability, about the virtues of a good friendship. We looked last time about the fact that all friendship is mutual, but that we can do things to make ourselves more amiable, to make the person who's committed themselves to us in one way or another, to make it an easier task for them being with us, of loving us. I'd like to suggest an analogy with a room, and to look at ourselves, compare ourselves with a room, and the kind of things that make it pleasant to be in a room also apply to us, are pleasant or not pleasant. And I think there's 4 qualities that would belong, I think, to any room that is pleasant to spend time in, and that these we can carry these qualities over into the human realm. And the very first one, and I'm thinking now of a room that I like a lot and that I can spend a lot of time in, and it's got these 4 qualities. And the first quality then is the decor, just very superficial. The paint on the wall, the flooring, the furniture, the color scheme, basically that, literally the surface, the superficial things. And in this room that I was thinking of, it's very attractive, it's very clean, it's nice to be in. And that also carries across with people. Even though, again, it's by definition superficial, it is actually not unimportant for that reason. So, appearance, looking after personal hygiene, dressing nicely, doesn't mean that we have to dress up to the nines every day, but that we were turned out kind of pleasantly. Then our manners, etiquette, demeanor, all these things, which again, very superficial, but they are like the decor of a room. And it is easier to be in a room that's elegant and pleasant and clean. And likewise, it is easier to be with a person who looks after their appearance, looks after their good manners, avoiding vulgar language, this kind of thing. They're easier to be with. That's the first thing. Second thing about this room, again, this room that my ideal room, is that the sun shines in. This is a nice big window, and on a sunny day, the room is filled with sunlight, and it gets the best of any light that's going. And again, the same applies to people. And we do use that word. We talk about a sunny person, a person with a sunny disposition, cheerful, not overly serious. It can be chirpy, especially when it's needed, and so on. And that's the opposite to a kind of where the curtains would be drawn and the room is bathed in gloomy twilight. And that is, well, if we become morose, grumpy, flee from conversation, excessively serious, nagging, sad. And that's where the sunlight is switched off. And again, that just makes it harder. And therefore, one of the virtues that we have to work on and to be likable, amiable, is that sunniness, that overcoming any moroseness or gloominess or grumpiness. The third quality, rather, is affection. Affection is love manifested. It's It's no good between friends to love them but not manifest it. It has to be manifested, it has to be shown. And that we call affection. An affectionate person is a person who manifests their love. And what corresponds in the room for this is warmth. A room could be sunny, but actually freezing cold, with the windows wide open or whatever. And it's very hard to be in a room, even when it's sunny, even when it's got a nice decor, but it's freezing. And likewise, it's hard to be with a person who never manifests their love, who's not affectionate. And so we have to manifest this love, and this applies in particular to spouses. And we think of the things that they did to show their love at the beginning when dating shouldn't diminish just because they got married or they've been years married. There's that maybe famous joke about the wife complaining to her husband, John, "You never tell me that you love me." And he replied to her, "Mary, when we got married 25 years ago, I told you that I loved you. If anything changes, I will let you know." So obviously in that case, this guy is not very affectionate. And the wife legitimately is looking for expressions of love. Say that you love me. Do things. Give me flowers. And again, just between friends, colleagues, and so on, we should also be affectionate, warm. The final fourth characteristic about, again, this ideal room is that it has got a good bookshelf, or on the coffee table there's these interesting magazines or coffee table books. There's something to read and pass the time in that room. And so it's kind of basically interesting, entertaining. And so the same quality applies with our friends, again, in a particular way, with a spouse. That we have to look for things that are enjoyable, that passing time there, spending time, like in that room. Again, maybe warm, maybe sunny, maybe nice decor. But the kind of, the icing on the cake is that it's also very interesting. That the person, they share interests, very important thing. Aristotle says that men, he says, cannot associate with one another unless they are pleasant, that's the sunny and warm, and rejoice in the same things, share interests. And you see so often friendships flourish around a hobby, shared interest in sharing a common football team and that we're fans of, this kind of thing. But that's the books or the coffee table magazines or whatever, interesting. So these are the four qualities of the good room and the four qualities of the person who is amiable, lovable. I give you thanks, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations you have communicated to me in this meditation. I ask you for help to put them into effect. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.